Hey everyone, welcome to It Tastes Different Game Reviews. In this episode, we're going to review Chrono Cross: The Radical Dreamers. Chrono Cross: The Radical Dreamers Edition is the one that we're going to review this time, and this one was developed by D4 Enterprise and Square Enix, and published by Square Enix, and released on April 7th of 2022 on basically everything besides a phone. It came out on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, so you can pick it up pretty much anywhere. This is the remaster of Chrono Cross, the PlayStation 1 classic RPG, following the Chrono series, which there was Chrono Trigger and then Chrono Cross. In Japan, they got the Radical Dreamers, and that's where the Radical Dreamers edition comes into play, as this version of the game includes that Radical Dreamers portion that us in the US did not get. The Radical Dreamers portion is more of a text kind of choose your own adventure type thing, but it's supposed to kind of connect Chrono Trigger, the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom classic, to the events of Chrono Cross. So kind of making a connection between the two, but it's a really cool, like, kind of choose your own adventure type thing. It's all text. They do have some visuals in there, but it's all pretty much text, but you get to choose things, like various things come up and you get to make selections and stuff like that. So it is a really cool little thing. But anyway, we're going to go around and talk about this Radical Dreamers edition of the that Square Enix just put out here. So Pat, what did you think of Chrono Cross: The Radical Dreamers Edition?
So I've never played a Chrono game until now, and this was a bad game to get in on. I struggled with this one. It looks like a turd. It plays like a turd. It was not. It doesn't. They didn't do anything to it to help its case, in my opinion. I don't know what they remastered. I mean, some character models, some backgrounds. I mean, I don't know. I really struggled with this game to get into it. And I love JRPGs and stuff like that. But this game it's 20 plus years old now, I think. And so, it struggles. It needed a complete remake, I think, to be able to be relevant. And that's my problem, is I have an issue with super old games because the mechanics just don't play very well. They don't, this game is a perfect example of why something should have been remastered, because it doesn't even aspect very well on modern TVs. You have to choose a mode. Do I want it stretched to fit my screen? Do I want it in a letterbox on my TV? Or do I want it zoomed in to where it looks like really bad crap? And so it just doesn't play very well. And that's my biggest thing. Visually, it was hard for me to get past the visuals of the game, to get into the game. And that really hurt it, from my opinion, because it felt like work for me to play this game. And I love JRPGs. So for me, this game was pretty rough. Getting stuck on every little thing with the running and everything was just horrible. It just got, I don't know. I do think it was the concept was kind of cool with changing the time to go from like standard speed to fast forward to slow speed, because it lets you attack puzzles or situations differently. Like, early on in the game, you have to catch all these little, I don't even know what they're called, bright colored creatures that you need scales from. And I was like, how the hell am I going to catch this one that's like jumping back and forth, and I got to jump down him, like, he's too quick. And I'm like, oh, slow it down. So I could slow it down and time the jump better to land on him and, and get him. And then the other one where you could fast forward and chase his ass around in circles and circles and circles, because you can run faster than he can, but not normal speed. So that kind of stuff was cool, but the game it doesn't hold up, in my opinion. For me, who is somebody who is very graphically driven, a great story and great gameplay can overcome that. But I couldn't even get into the story because the gameplay was I got hung up on so many little rocks and things in the terrain, and combat was just, I don't know. In the early stages, it is very much just like fast forward through all this combat. It is boring in the beginning. I'm like, where's all my magic spells and stuff? I have to buy these and they're one-time uses. Okay, I'm not all about that. Give me a character that can use magic as an ability, or spells as ability. So I struggled with it, So, Shane, what about you, man? How did you fare on this one?
I loved it originally when it came out, but when they slapped the word remaster on it, they basically did a huge disservice to fans. Because, like you said, it's hard to find anything that feels and or looks remastered it anyway. The character models looked better, give them that, but not a lot. They really don't. The storyboard text that comes up during your dialogue, the character designs on those looked fantastic. Got to give them credit there; they look fantastic. But that's just it's a stale image that never changes, and the text is just text, so it doesn't really benefit the game. So I wouldn't even put that in part as part of the remaster. The Fmvs, I don't remember them being so muddy. The very intro of it was just a muddy mess. The backgrounds are, I don't see any change to them. I really don't. I mean, they may have changed something. I didn't see it. I play Final Fantasy VIII all the time. The remaster is not really remastered. They added some perks to it, just like they did with this one. They added some stuff to make combat easier. You could speed up time. You can make it where you don't run into random enemies, blah, blah, blah. And Square Enix is doing that in a lot of games. They did it on Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, and this. But to call this a remaster is just a slap in the face. They could have done I think Pat was right. They should have made it a remake. The game is old enough, but the game is loved enough to worthy a remake. I mean, Nick, I know, is a huge Chrono Cross fan. I'm more Final Fantasy than Chrono Cross, but it's still a fantastic game. But far as the game itself, as in gameplay, it's not changed. It's still fine. I don't remember how much I loved or hated the original gameplay. I really can't, just because it's been that long since I played it. I mean, I have not played it since release, so I don't got that much of a memory. But Pat's right about the running into crap stuff. I mean, you would hang up on everything. I got caught up on a couple cats that were just pissing me off. I had to put them down. I don't know. It's a letdown. Overall, it really is just a letdown because nothing felt like they did anything of any consequence. I could pick up the original and have just as much fun with it than I did with the remaster. Because with the remaster, you're hoping for a little bit more. You're hoping for something a little shinier, a little smoother, a little better. There's some graphical issues. There's gameplay issues, some lagging issues. So I'm pretty disappointed with it. But I should not have expected too much because Square Enix, when they say remaster, they don't really do that much to remaster it. So what about you, Nick?
Yeah, I would have to agree. And I'm not going to talk about the game in general as far as this review goes. I think Chrono Cross itself is a fantastic RPG that is a great game to play if you've never played it before. But you got to remember it is a PS1 game, so it is going to be rough around the edges, right? But what I am going to talk about is this so-called remaster, right? And Square Enix has got to stop doing this crap. Exactly right. They did this with Final Fantasy 7, with Final Fantasy 8, with Final Fantasy 9. With some other games as well. They do this, we're going to remaster this, but they really don't do much of anything at all. And this is another case in point where they didn't do much of anything. They basically took the turds and they smoothed them out a bit. They buffed them just a bit and they go, cool. And it's like, just call it a re-release. Just say we're going to do a Chrono Cross re-release. We're just going to re-release it for newer systems. Because that's pretty much what this is. The remastering part, I mean, yeah, there is a difference, but it's such a slight difference that it really doesn't matter. Like, exactly right, Shane. I'd rather just pop in the original discs and just play the game outright because you're pretty much getting the same experience here. The only difference is in this version, you do get the Radical Dreamers, which we did not get here in the US. So, that in itself, that is really, it is a text-based adventure, right? But it's almost like a choose your own adventure. If you remember those old choose your own adventure books and stuff like that, where you get to pick like different this happens, what happens if you go to this door, turn to page 56, and the text adventure is just like that. You get to certain points where it has you make decisions, and then based on those decisions, you'll go there, and the story plays out a little differently, which is really cool. I like that part. That the Radical Dreamers is a pretty cool addition and really neat to see, especially for something that we didn't get to experience here in the US. So I would say, like, I don't know, for me, as far as the remaster goes, yeah, they didn't remaster crap. I mean, as far as the remaster goes, I would say this is a poor attempt by Square Enix just to cash in on the franchise. However, it's saying like for me, it's like, would I recommend it to people? It is a $20 game. I would recommend it if you've never played Chrono Cross, or you don't have access to the original Chrono Cross, the PS1, or you don't have a PS1, or maybe you have the game, but you don't have a PS1 or something or like that, or a PS2 or a PS3 that's backwards compatible. It is on the PS3. You can go buy it digitally from there, right? Until that goes away. And then it might be a part of PlayStation Plus's new program, right? All their backwards compatible games are supposed to add to that. So there are various ways to get it. Plus the game itself, you can find the greatest hits version pretty cheap online. It's not a super expensive game, so you could pick it up.
$20 to $25 is what I just saw.
Yeah, so it's not a super expensive game, but it is a very beloved game, and it does have its fan base. So I would say, if you only have a modern system now and don't want to pick up the old ones, and you want to try out the Radical Dreamers, and you're kind of a fan of the Chrono Cross and Chrono games, or maybe never played them before, I would say, pick it up for that reason, not for the remaster reason, but for the reason that you want to play a really good RPG, right? A classic one, right? Again, this is classic, so it is rough around the edges, but that's how it was back in the day. If anyone remembers play PS1 games and stuff, it was rough everywhere. We were just kind of used to it back then. So
but that's all we had back then, right? And the problem is, though, nowadays, if you have a hard time like me getting over things like that, that's what made the game difficult. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like I had really cool concepts, and like I said, I love JRPGs. I love building a party and swapping out the party for the different members that you want to have in your party and things like that. And this game has all of that. But the problem is that I cannot get over how bad it looks. And by today's standard, I should mean, back in PS1 standard, this was the standard. I mean, this is what games were, and you had nothing to compare them to. And nowadays games are different, right? I mean, I feel like the battles feel very trivial, and this is, granted, my very first exposure to this game series, and it has already kind of ruined it for me because Square, I was expecting more, to be honest with you. I'm like, okay, cool. I remember seeing the trailers of what the old one looks like, and I'm like, all right, well, they remastered it, right? I mean, they had to do something, but it sounds like all they did was fix the texture, the character models in the text log, and then retouch up the backgrounds. Like, I don't know what else they've done to it. But it's rough. I mean, all the battles that I gotten into so far seem very trivial, very just like, meh. And I'm like, okay, it's all very repetitive, and having the quick battle mode on is the only way to do it, or else you're just going to be sitting there smashing buttons the whole time when you don't need to for no reason and stuff like that. And I'm like, so to me, it was a bad taste in my mouth for this game. Never had playing the series, and this is my first foray into it. And I'm like, yeah, no, but I have Square Enix to blame for that, right? I mean, they've outdone themselves in a few things, right? When they did the remake of Final Fantasy, that was an awesome freaking game. I loved it, and never had played the one previous to that. So I loved that. But they do stuff like this, and I'm just like, so do I never buy anything from you guys that says remaster or re-release? I only have to buy remakes from them. I guess that's what I have to do, or else they're going to ruin franchises for me.
Yeah, you're pretty much right. I mean, when they announced Final Fantasy VIII Remaster, I've already been burnt by the remaster train. But I'm such a huge doofus for Final Fantasy VIII. I'm, screw it. I got to get it. I was just like this. I was disappointed absolutely by the lack of remastering. I mean, they threw in the battle assistant stuff, the speed stuff, everything they've got on here. And that's not what gamers want. We don't want to make the game easier. We don't want to make the game shorter because of stuff like that, not running into enemies. That's not what they want from these games. They want that remaster. So those FMV scenes should have been buffed up and just pimped out. No reason they released that garbage that they did, because it looks terrible. And I don't know if it's just a bad port or bad, whatever, but I don't think they look that bad when I bought them and played them on a CRT.
That's because it wasn't stretched to fill your screen. Zoomed
that is
in.
true. That is true.
I mean, I have to admit, it's only $20, so I couldn't have had too much of high hope for it, but I'm like, $20, okay. I had to have done something, right? I mean, but then again, it's only $20, and that's how I have to look at it. But still, for me, it was very hard to get through because of all of the graphical, and I guess maybe it just doesn't hold up to today's standards, because I mean, the combat and stuff really was kind of boring to me, and I'm like, I love JRPGs, but
I like the combat. That's
the combat to me was just like, man, I'm like, especially in the first couple hours of the game, it's like when it's just you, it's like, okay, I'm attacking this creature. All right, I'm going to hit A every time I want to attack him 3 times instead of just auto attack. And then you're like, oh, you can turn that on. You can change the combat mode. And I'm like, stupid stuff like that. I'm like, I don't need to make sure I do every swing of the weapon. If my weapon's going to hit, if I got enough stamina to swing it 4 times at one enemy, then just swing it 4 times. Or if it dies in 3, okay, cool. I've still got to swing left for another enemy, stuff like that. So stuff like that is just not up to standard today, in my opinion. That's probably what it suffers from in my eyes, is that I'm expecting. It's hard for me to have a vision of this is a PS1 game. I'm thinking I'm buying $20 for something you said is remastered, and I'm having a hard time telling what you actually did besides repackage it with the Radical Dreamers mud game and send it out the door.
They updated the cover art for the box, so
that's what the $20 paid for, because I didn't buy the box. So
yeah, the Radical Dreamers portion, no, I didn't play much. Just I read and I read and I read 5-10 minutes into it, and I really enjoyed it to a point. But I'm not a reader no more. I'm an American now. And it sounds bad. I know. I read all day at work. I look at documents and I read drawings, and I don't want to read no more. Now, I loved what they did, though. I think what they should have done was they should have got some good voice actors and did like a whole thing with it. And then, you hit a button to say, all right, well, I want to do this. And then the voice actor comes back, you son of a bitch. Something, like that would have been better for me. But like I said, I'm not a reader no more. I don't want to read when I get home. I want to do this at the TV. That's it. That's my goal when I get home. I make dinner and at the TV. Might scratch my ass. I don't know.
Now instead, he's got to look at the TV and he's got to go.
Oh.
Lip reading the whole thing.
Now he's got to put his glasses on. See what you made him do.
And hold the ruler up to the screen so you can make sure he stays on the line.
Yeah. The game was the game itself originally is fantastic. I'm right there with Nick. I really enjoyed it. I'm just the problem with the game is they threw the word remaster on it. They should have just said re-release, like Pat said, and I don't think I would be near as bothered. But it's also because we're burnt on the remaster train. Everybody's throwing a remaster out there, and I can't think of one that has been worth a crap. I mean, I just can't. I mean, the GTA trilogy remaster thing, that was a turd. Final Fantasy 7, 8, and I love 8 and 9. Those were all turds because they didn't really do anything. They threw in stuff to make the game easier for newbies and people. I don't want it to be easier. I want it to be just better looking, and maybe throw in some DLC that wasn't that Japan had that we didn't get, like like this one has, sort of. So I don't know. I wouldn't pay $20 for it.
I mean, yeah,
for the remaster, I would pay $20 for the original, because then you have the game, but you also are not getting conned out of an extra whatever to get this BS remake crap out. That's me.
Right. I mean, sometimes games do pretty good. Wasn't that Kingdoms of Amalur game a remaster? And they added some new content to it as well. It wasn't a remake, but that, in my opinion, was a good remastering. You
That
know,
one was okay. Yeah, I forgot about
some
that
companies
one,
do
so-
good, but I guess Square Enix is just about we need to get our library re-released on the new consoles, and yeah, I probably would have been in the same boat. I probably wouldn't have been as disappointed if it was just like a re-release. But they didn't even tell us that they touched up some textures, and that's it.
Yeah.
And just said, we're re-releasing this with the Radical Dreamers edition in the US. So people in the US, I'd be like, cool. My expectations have been set. But no, they said remaster, and I'm expecting a remastering of a game, you know. I'm not expecting them to do the George Lucas thing and superimpose Anakin into the old Star Wars or anything. I'm just talking like, come on. Clean it up, people. Like, come on. Don't hire a team of voice actors and remake the game because that's a different thing. But at least rerun the entire textures through something modern, you know. I don't know. I'm a little bitter with it,
especially
because I was
the
expecting more.
FMVs. I mean, the FMVs look like something from 1970s Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah, but they'd had to hire actors and voice actors and actresses again to revoice that whole thing, because I don't know how they could. I mean, I guess they could have kept the same voices. They could have just redid the whole. I don't know. That probably would have been more money than what $20 a pop could have got us. But yeah, I understand. I was in the same boat though. I was expecting a lot more polish and prepping the game instead of just we're bundling these together and here you go.
Yep, they flicked off the peanuts. It has about as much work as they put into it.
They blew the dust off of it, you know.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You know, yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, I love Chrono Cross as the game, but this remaster is nothing but a re-release with a little bit of slight, you know, wood polish on there. They just kind of just little spit shine. We're like, that's good, and re-released it. I mean, come on, Square Enix, don't quit doing this crap. Like, if you want to re-release your old catalog, that's cool, but just call it a re-release, right? Don't tell us it's going to remaster, because you do as minimal work as possible to remaster, and it just comes out looking slightly, if so small, better than it did before. Just like a little, you're like, I think that Square is different. And that's about it, right? But like I said, for $20, if you've never played Chrono Cross and you don't, unlike Pat, you know, you don't mind the old PS1 clumsiness, then cool, you know, and you don't have any other way of playing it, go ahead and pick it up and try it out. It's a great game. It's a great RPG as far as the RPG goes. If you have the original or anything like that, or you're expecting more than what we got, then don't touch it. You know, hopefully this is not, and this is the last thing I'll say, is hopefully this is not some sort of idea for Square Enix to gauge interest in a new Chrono game, right? Because that will piss me off. Everyone who's a fan of Chrono games, Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, has been waiting for a new Chrono game for years. And, you know, I can't remember if it was Square or someone else had done this, something very similar to this in the past to gauge interest on a new one, and they put out the crappiest version of whatever it was at the time that nobody wanted, that was horrible. And we're like, I wonder if people are interested in this. Well, they're not interested in the crap you released. No, they are interested in a new one, just not whatever the hell you made. So don't gauge interest on this. I don't know the sales for this remaster, but don't make that gauge interest like, oh, people just seem to really dislike it. They dislike it because you did a crap job at remastering this, or what you consider a remaster. So,
yep, not the game, the publishers.
Yes. You guys have anything else you want to add to this before we wrap it up? Before
Don't
we remaster
screw up
this?
Don't screw up Legend of Dragoon if you're going to do that too.
I was sorely disappointed. I was really hoping for more, unfortunately. But yeah, if you're like me and you know graphics are a hard thing for you, that's really hard to get, and mechanics, you know, that's really hard. I've never played a Chrono game, and I was really having high hopes, as it's a well-liked, you know, RPG, and here we are. I'm stuck holding the bag going, what was this? Oh, I should have just played on PS1. That way I would have had the nostalgia feel for it. Now I'm getting the nostalgia feel in reverse. Oh, I love this game. Oh, God, I shouldn't have played this game. That's what happened to me.
Should have played it back in 1999 when it released.
Right.
Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Let us know down in the comments below. What do you think? Have you picked up this remaster? And what do you think about it? And also, what do you think of remasters in general? Like we said, there's been a few good remasters, but in the most part, especially from Square Enix, their remasters are horrible. The remakes are great, but the remasters are pathetic. So let us know what you think down in the comments below. Make sure to like the video if you like it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell notification if you want to stay up to date with new videos that we do all the time. But we'll see you next time.
See ya.